Hey, and welcome back to Talk About Worlds. I'm Sir Felix the Cat, and this is Nerd Talk Thursday. I'm going to be continuing our State of Gaming series that we're doing. And so before I get into this, let me just say, I had this whole conversation just ready to go. Going to go over the history of PlayStation and all this, but then we kind of had Sony come through and kind of just do this for me. They updated their site and just went through and, told their own history. So, yeah, we're just basically going to go off that. Okay, so really quick, let me do a little description of where the PlayStation originated. Originally, there was this company known as Nintendo, and they decided, hey, we're going to try to move out and work with other companies to make a better console. Maybe a disc-based console or something like that. And they teamed up with Sony. And they were working on this new project. It was going to be the place, or the Nintendo Station or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. But in the end, they started to get a little sketchy with Sony, and they thought they were just trying to steal their ideas and whatnot to get themselves in the gaming industry. And basically decided to be yeah, you know what, screw you, we're going to go team up with Philips, and that was just terrible. But yeah, Sony being burnt by that, they were like, okay, well, screw you. You thought we were going to do that? Now we are going to do that. And thus the PlayStation was born. So currently we're looking at 30 years of PlayStation, or 30 years of play. Join us as we journey through PlayStation history and the consoles and games that made us. So, 1994. It was originally released in Japan in 94, in North America in 95, and also Europe in 95, just at the end of September. And yeah, they had some great games. They were really a powerhouse when it came to gaming when they first launched. They were basically, insta-hit. And yeah, do not underestimate the power of PlayStation. The original one went to sell over 102 million copies of the console. That's between 94 and 2006. And they say it was changing the game. And yes, they were very much game-changing. Before this, we had basically pixel art. We had the NES, we had Atari, we had Sega, we had, I think this came out after the 64, which is 64-bit graphics. But yeah, if you look here, just look at Final Fantasy VII. They went more for polygons. And they could put quite a few polygons on screen. It was pretty impressive. We had fighters that looked more like real people and not just these 2D images. I'm not going to count racing games. That's not really something I want to talk about here either. But here we go, more polygons. The 3D capabilities of the PlayStation is what really made it impressive. And yeah, here we go. They had 360,000 polygons per second. And then whatever they mean here by maximum color depth of huge number true colors, it could do a lot of colors, which you can clearly see here. All these different shades we have going on with Final Fantasy VII, the fighting games. This would probably be the best example for colors. These two right here, they do quite a few different colors. Everything on the screen is very much different. It was a beautiful system. The thing that I loved about this system is they came out with a game called Monster Rancher. And one of the ways you would summon your monsters that you're going to train in that game is you would go to the shrine. And there you could actually put in a disc of any sort into the console. It'll read a little code off of it, and it'll generate a monster based off of that. And you can still go online and look up what discs to use, what CDs, or I don't think they didn't do DVDs back then, but basically what CDs you could put in there or other games and get a monster pulled off of it. And it was beautiful because like you would go to the shrine, you would start the process, and it would tell you, okay, open up your PlayStation. So you'd press open, pull out the game disc, and you'd put in another disc inside there, and that's when it would read it, and then it would tell you to swap back. That was just a genius idea. It was a cool way to get things done. You didn't have to like enter codes like you would on later on in the Game Boy Advance versions of Monster Rancher. It was just straight up swap a disc and see what happens. That led to hours of fun of just basically going through the house, grabbing every CD I possibly could, borrowing CDs from people just so I could see what comes off of it. Those were the days. Tell Dad if you stay home, you can't total the car. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's back in the old days. What do we got here? God, those sounds were just iconic every time you turned on your system, started a new game. I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah, here we can actually see the different breakdowns, what they had. This is the launch model, and it wasn't huge, but I mean, it's much bigger than they did with the revision, which is basically the size, looks a little bit bigger than the disc itself. It was cool. I love that. My buddy had that one. That was the PS1. And then the Classic, which is basically just the emulator. Yeah, that was the other cool thing about the PS1, is it came with a little screen attachment you could get, and it had speakers on it, so you could just play it portably. Like, it was great for going in the car on a long road trip. Take this thing with you. God, I love these days. They were great. You had the different controllers, so this was the basic one that came out. Back before they did the thumbsticks, it was just the D-pad and all that. Later on, they did come out with the dual analog and the dual shock, which is what we know today. Dual analog that was pretty cool. People probably don't remember this one too much. More people are going to be familiar with the DualShock, which basically took the world by storm. But the dual analog was a decent controller. I will say, like, the thumbsticks particularly were better. If they had stuck with this model, they would be probably a more preferred console for shooters. That's one thing that Xbox does have over them, is that thumbstick with a divot. It just gives you better control over aiming. But yeah, Sony ended up sticking with like basically this format, which is just round domed. It does have that texture on it to where your thumb doesn't slide around as much, but yeah, that divot makes it so much better for shooters. Yeah, they did come out with see-through ones. They felt a little cheaper, but they were still quality. I don't think I have these anymore. I think I broke mine, but I did have the blue one. I always wanted the green one. Could never find it. That was sad. But yeah, the more common ones were black, but mainly that classic gray. That is what most people got. I did not know this was a thing, so I'm just not even going to talk about it. Yeah, so the PlayStation only had two controller slots, two memory card slots. You could get this extension, which would make it 4. There were a few games that did play that. Did allow up to 4 players. Of course, your memory cards. I don't know what the heck that is. I've never seen that before. They had a mouse. I mean, I don't know why you use the mouse. I just wanted the description. I didn't want to see a big picture of it. Oh yeah, so Broken Sword. Oh yeah, Discworld. Discworld, and it was better for playing SimCity too. That's right. That is right. Yes, so when PlayStation launched, they were more of a mascot console at first. Like, they had Spyro, they had Crash Bandicoot, they had Lara Croft, and that's what they ran on for like that whole generation. Like, Lara Croft was a huge, massive mega hit. Everybody loved her. Her games were challenging. I've talked about the first Tomb Raider before. I got to die by a dinosaur. First time I played it, I died by some wolves 6 or 7 times. Then I died by a bear quite a few times. After some frustration, I got further and, yeah, again, died to like a dinosaur. Yeah, here's some of their bigger hits. Tekken, however you want to say it. I think Tekken is the proper way. That was massive mega hit. That whole series is beautiful. Tekken 3, I think it was, is the one that I spent the most time playing. Yeah, there's Tomb Raider, Resident Evil. That's when this amazing series first got its launch. Beautiful game. I remember back in the day, this game was terrifying. You look at it now, go back and play the original one now. It's very not scary, but God, that first time you play that game, it is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Of course, we had Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VIII was also on there. Crash Bandicoot, which I mentioned. Gran Turismo, when it was like the premier racing game. I mean, it's still a big name in racing, but I think Xbox kind of took over for that one with Horizon. What else? We have Oddworld, Ape Escape, Metal Gear Solid, which beautiful, beautiful game. And yeah, actually just picked up the re-release of these games just the other day. I'm very excited about that. I mean, I got it on Switch, so I probably shouldn't be talking about that here. They do have it on PlayStation, they have it on Xbox, they have it on everything. And then we have the PlayStation 2. Please take me to the page. There we go. Okay. So the PS2. This is the, like I said, the best-selling console of all time. It's sold 160 million copies, something like that. I think they just estimate that. I don't know what the heck just happened there. Come on. So this was released in Japan in March 2000, then North America in October 2000, and Europe in November of 2000. That was a wonderful, wonderful year. And they even mention right here what is the biggest thing that helped this sell. It played DVDs. This was right after DVDs first became like the form of home entertainment. And why would you go buy a console and then go buy a DVD player when you could just buy the console that is a DVD player? I mean, it just makes sense. It also had online multiplayer games, which was, yeah, very ambitious. It was great. It was great. The only thing I will say about it is, a positive really quick is it could backwards compatible play your PS1 games. But it had this stupid disc format that didn't allow... It's the reason why we don't have backwards compatibility later on in generations that we'll go over once we hit the PS3, PS4, and PS5. Yeah, this is a beautiful, beautiful console that I have sitting over there. It is... it's a powerhouse. It was weird looking when you first see it. The slim model is what a lot of people went to after a while. But yeah, you actually press the eject button and the tray slides out. Again, it only has one memory card, or two memory card and two controller slots. Yeah. One of the biggest selling video game consoles of all time, with over 160 million copies sold worldwide since 2000. And again, they tried to go back to being their mascot brand. They did introduce new mascots for this series, like this generation, and I think those have a much larger impact. Like, I'm not going to knock Crash Bandicoot. He is pretty dope. He's a cool little character. But we started to see them move away from less of those cartoony ones. Like, Spyro became less important for them. Croc, unfortunately, just was a PS1 series. I wish they would have kept that one going. I love that one. But, yeah, so it had the Emotion Engine. It allowed... the PS2's console CPU was dubbed the Emotion Engine due to its ability to generate realistic images for the time and was comprised of 8 separate units, each with a specific function. And yep, it had DVDs, which we talked about. And then, so, here's the Slim. The Slim was, like I said, the one that most people went to later on. It's much more compact. It is probably prettier. And you had all the different variations. You had white, you had the silver, and you had the classic black. It was great. It was great. Like I said earlier, it's able to do online play, which that was beautiful. You did have to buy this adapter so it would work. But yeah, now we're going to get into the games. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, we had 1 and 2 on the PS1. 3 came out for the PS2. We had Star Wars Battlefront, which this is one of those games you could play online. That game is a massive hit. If you've never played it, it was re-released. I think it was touched up too. Earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year. Definitely go check it out. SOCOM, which is a series that we need to get back. Final Fantasy. We're missing some God of War nonsense. Yeah, so we had Killzone. We had Jak and Daxter, which that is one of the more cartoony ones. I want to say it's a main name for PlayStation, but it really isn't. It's a big name for Naughty Dog, but I feel like they need to come back and do more with it. We had Twisted Metal Black, which was all right. I prefer the ones on PS1, to be honest. I did not play that one. Ratchet and Clank, which is another one that they try to keep with their cartoony mascots. People do love Ratchet and Clank, just like people love Jak and Daxter. But I don't know. They don't. I feel like there's not enough power behind them. Sly Cooper, which is one that everybody wants to bring back, and for some reason they just don't. Killzone, which I talked about on the podcast this past weekend or past Monday. Beautiful series. Definitely go check it out. People did label it as being a Halo killer. I don't think it's the same as Halo. I prefer this to Halo, which I put out a short saying that. I don't like the original Halo. Halo got good with 2, and I'm talking about campaigns. Multiplayer is just multiplayer. It's whatever. It's very basic, but people love it. It's got Bungie mechanics. You can't knock that. But back to PlayStation. Yeah, check out Killzone. God of War. This is, in my mind, this is PlayStation's mascot. This is their main mascot. And Kratos is beautiful. Resident Evil 4, which also came out on other consoles. Shadow of the Colossus, which is a super popular game. Definitely check that one out. They also went heavier into peripherals. As you can see, here's the controller, which doesn't want to load for me for some reason. But we have the Guitar Hero controllers. Whatever the heck this is. Oh, buzzers for that quiz game. You had the iToy, which it was gimmicky, but it did have some fun things you could do with it. There were a couple titles that really used it. I didn't know Tony Hawk used it, and that was... I'll have to go back and check that out sometime. Yes, and then we had the PSP. The PSP is beautiful. It was a beautiful, game-changing handheld. It was more powerful than what Nintendo was putting out for their handhelds. It had the dumb little disc-based UMD cartridge discs, whatever you want to call them. It was a disc inside of a cartridge. They were iffy. Some people had them break a lot. I didn't. I took very good care of mine. But I did love this console. I still have it. After they stopped supporting it, like years after they stopped supporting it, I ended up like hacking it and all that and making it basically an emulator. But still have some of my cartridges sitting on my UMDs. But it also played movies, which was kind of keeping in line with what the PS2 did. PS2 played DVDs. Well, they made special UMD movies. It was a little weird to get used to. You only had one stick. So you would rely a lot on your shoulder buttons to be like turning the cameras and whatnot for most games. But I mean, think of it as being like the Nintendo 64. You only had one stick there, and you kind of had to do similar things with it. Yeah, this was a great little console. I love that one. Yeah, here's some of the UMDs. You can see what I mean by it's a disc inside of a cartridge. Yeah, you pop it right in the back. It did have built-in Wi-Fi, which, I mean, that was game-changing for the time as well. And we did have custom games made for it. We had Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. We had another Ape Escape. We had another Siphon Filter game, which if you've never played Siphon Filter, I feel sorry for you. We had some of the best GTA games in my mind. We had the Chinatown Wars, Liberty City Stories, just some beautiful games. God of War Chains of Olympus, which I've said before, this is the second best God of War game. The first one being God of War 3. You can say what you want about the newer ones. I don't care for the style. It's not, to me, it's not God of War. It's just a completely different game. They kind of went for that, like, almost want to be a Dark Souls style action adventure game. When I want that brutal, crazy Kratos going out and destroying everything. Yeah, PSP was beautiful. Sadly, I was sad the day that they finally stopped supporting it. Very sad. We have the PS3, which I have mine sitting here. I don't have the original copy, which is the shiny one. I got the re-release of it. Yeah, so the PS3. It's going to show me what's going on here. My computer's running a little slow. I apologize for that. So, they say 2007. There we go, doing that again. Come on. All right, so it released in Japan in November of 2006. It released in the U.S., in North America, in November of 2006, just 6 days later. And then, unfortunately, it didn't make it to Europe until March 23rd of 2007. I was going to say 2007, and that's just a weird way to talk. I do like the look of the original one. I have a pet peeve with fingerprints being on stuff, so I couldn't do that because it was a very shiny system. So I prefer the matte plastic one, which I have, which I didn't get that one like purposely on choice. It was just I got mine years later. I was slow getting to it. I mean, I was still playing a bunch of Nintendo consoles at the time. But yeah, so they went with a much sleeker design. Mine's the same way. So you have, well, mine has more of a button. But here, it wasn't like an actual button. You would just press right there, just touch the plastic, and that would actually initiate it releasing the disc. And there's your power button and all that. This one did have built-in Wi-Fi. It could support up to 4 controllers. There's where you would actually charge your controller straight from the system. That went fast. This one didn't sell as well as the PS2. They thought it would. I mean, most of us thought it would. But, yeah, it was much less of a hit. But it still sold quite a few. I mean, 87 million copies is pretty good. It's pretty good. They also kept the style of the PSP for its homepage. You have all your little categories here: games, internet, your PlayStation account. If you have any movies on here, you can put music straight onto it, which I have I still have a ton of music sitting on there. They also had the stereoscopic piece, or 3D. You had to have a 3D TV to go along with it. But yeah, it was pretty gimmicky, and they didn't really do too much into it. I had a couple games that allowed it, but I didn't have these actual glasses. I tried using regular 3D glasses, and it just didn't work the same. Of course, mine came from a theater after watching a 3D movie. But yeah, and it also had HDMI, which is beautiful. Nice 1080p screen. And then here we go. I have the PS3 Slim. And then there's the Super Slim, which I've actually never seen in the wild. It's very interesting to see for the first time. Well, not the first time I've seen it, but when you do see one for the first time, it will be very interesting, just because it's kind of rare. All right, and yeah, it played Blu-ray. Like they went all out with it. It was pretty impressive. Here we have the controllers, which I love these controllers. So the controllers just keep getting better and better with Sony. That's one of their things that I love about them, is they don't change the way their controller works. It just gets better. It starts feeling more comfortable. Sadly, again, we're going to go back to what I said about the PlayStation 1. PlayStation 1, for the first controller they came out with that had sticks, it had the divots. They're still sticking with this domed theme, which they had for the PS2 as well. I didn't get to show that since the picture didn't want to load. They also tried to get into movement, because around this time we were having this console called the Wii, and that was all about movement. It worked decently. A lot of people did have issues. My parents actually used this before, used the Move, and they liked it. Of course, again, they said it doesn't compare to the Wii, but it was still pretty good. Now, the games we had here, this is where they started to lose people. The PS3 didn't launch with the strongest catalog of games. You're probably not going to remember this one, Kung Fu Rider, which is a fun game. It does require PlayStation Move. I only ever played it in a GameStop before. But yeah, if you see the selection of games we have here that they're showing for like, these are our big titles, yeah, you're probably disappointed. I mean, I'm disappointed looking at this. This became a hit with video games later on in its lifespan, not from the launch. It was terrible at launch. It had a few gimmicky games that were supposed to be big hits, and they sadly weren't. PlayStation became very reliant on third-party titles like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, all those games, because they would try to compare like, hey, this is the PS3 compared to the 360. 360 was great for shooters, but really when it comes down to it, PlayStation 3 had the better graphics. It had better graphical capabilities. And that's what they kind of went for. They had some Final Fantasies on it. Again, I don't know why they don't show anything good here. Oh, here we go. We had Uncharted. Uncharted, this is where it basically lived out most of its life, with only, I think, the fourth one coming out on PS4. The other ones were there. We have Resistance, which is beautiful. Absolutely say pick this one up. You also have Resistance on some other handhelds too. Assassin's Creed, again, I was saying third party came big here. We had Infamous, which is fantastic. They need to bring this one back. Make it more true to the original gameplay. I don't want them to change anything up. Keep it basically how it was. Make it like Spider-Man. Like the Spider-Man games they came out with for PS4 and PS5. They're beautiful. We had Last of Us, which is a super mega hit. I did play this one. I got to basically about the end and I quit. I was done with it. Once I got past that dude in the restaurant where you're playing as Ellie and you're having to like hide from him and attack him from behind, I hated that so much. But when I finally got past it, I was like, hey, you're dead. I'm done. Never coming back. Absolutely never coming back. We also have one of the best-selling games of all time, Grand Theft Auto 5, which Grand Theft Auto 5 was basically advertised as a PlayStation game, even though it was also on Xbox. They just got the marketing deal for it. And that really helped them. A lot of people consider Grand Theft Auto to be a PlayStation series, even though it's everything. And then we have the beautiful, beautiful PS Vita from 2011. It was in Japan in 2011, didn't come here till February of 2012, and same date it released in Europe in 2012. They went for a more bubbly theme here, as you can see. So this would be page one. You have your shop, you have your like social, internet, you could take pictures with it because it did have a camera, your trophies, and then you would just basically take here, put your finger here, swipe up, or you could also just tab down through everything using the arrows and stick, and you would go to the next page. And that's where you'd probably have to start seeing your games. You could download games onto it because it worked just like a regular console. You can download things to it, put in your physical games, which are little cartridges, kind of like the Nintendo Switch, but a little smaller. I absolutely love this one. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. An OLED screen. It was touchpad. It had a rear touchpad. There were games that actually required that. You could tap the back of it. It had remote play, so you could play PS4 and some PS3 titles. It was great. I used it for that quite often at first. And yeah, it was an indie powerhouse. Absolute indie powerhouse. Uncharted Golden Abyss, beautiful game. I love this one. We have Gravity Rush, Tearaway, which if you've never played Tearaway, check that one out. Soul Sacrifice, it's a cool little action RPG. One of the best RPGs of all time, Persona 4 Golden. Absolutely need to get that one. Like, if you haven't played Persona, this is a good one to start with. You can start with any of them, but this one really gets you into what Persona is about, just like Persona 5 does. And it's a little, I think it's more accessible than Persona 3 in my opinion. And then Little Big Planet, which is still one of their mascots that's just very underused. Very underused. But yeah, and then we're going to go into PlayStation TV. It was a thing. I mean, now we just have PlayStation Plus. Just do that. Just do that. But now we're going to move on to PlayStation 4. This is a console I still love. I mean, it's hooked up underneath my TV. You can't see it behind me. It's too dark. But it's sitting there. I still record a lot of stuff using it. This dropped in 2013, November. Yeah, November for Japan. Or no, sorry. I have this all backwards. This is after they moved over to the US. Sony relocated from Japan to being in the US, and I wish my computer would quit loading pages like that. Just let me see it at first. So it released first in North America in November of 2013, also in Europe a few weeks later in 2013, and then in Japan, February of 2014. Because now Sony is a American brand, and this is the generation where they started basically saying, we owe everything to Japan, so we're just going to say screw them, and they're going to lose a lot of their studios that we do and all this stuff. It was a shame. So, again, we have Tearaway. Beautiful game. Beautiful game. Go play it. The Order 1886, which is a game which has been talked about a lot on the internet. Beautiful game. It's very short, but I do suggest if you can find it, play it. Like, absolutely play it. Bloodborne, which people still want a remake of. No Man's Sky, which is one of the best games ever made. Absolutely 100%. This is my favorite game of all time. Until Dawn, which is Until Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn, which I do love. It's, I didn't know it was so controversial to people. People don't like Aloy for some reason. That's whatever. Ghost of Tsushima, which I call Ghost of Sushi Roll, because I'm not being racist, just that's what I think of when I hear Tsushima for some reason. I think of like a type of sushi. Yeah, here's the beautiful system. And it sold better than the PS3. It sold 117 million units, which is great. It was a powerhouse. It did focus a lot on remote play, I will say that. Like, that was one of its selling things. Here is the slim version, which I believe... Yes. I don't have the original anymore. Now I have the slim. Which is it's a great console. Absolutely great console. The controller had a touchpad here, which there were games you could draw on it. Tearaway is one of those games you have to use the pad quite often in it, which is fun. It's gimmicky. Oh, the light bar too. So right behind this, you can't see it here, but there's like a light bar triangle. And in Tearaway specifically, there's times where you have to like use that to shine it on the screen. I mean, this controller was quite amazing. Like I've said, they've only gotten better and better. They also extended out the grips a little bit more, so it felt more comfortable. The rumble felt better in it. It didn't feel like it was a loose gizmo inside of it. I don't know why they're showing this game. So, I said before I love Killzone. Killzone Shadowfall. Not a good game. Just not a good game. I do not like that one. We have more Infamous Second Son, which is pretty good. Or we talked about Bloodborne. It's connected to Shadow of the Colossus in a way. Like, it's the same company. Beautiful game. It can be frustrating dealing with a pet. Like Trico, people do have issues with that. Uncharted 4, this is where Drake's story ends. We have Spider-Man, which I have sitting behind me on the table. Horizon Zero Dawn, which I talked about. God of War, this is the ones that I don't like. The style just doesn't look for me. I gave up on Last of Us Part 1 at the very end, so I'm never playing this game, even though I will say it's pretty cool they had the Vita shown in it. That was pretty dope. And the fact they had the guitar that actually worked. Yeah, there's the beauty right there. That system is absolutely amazing. But yeah, and they did the Pro in 2016, and that's what started this whole thing that I don't like about Sony right now, is the fact that they do a Pro. We're going to get more into that with the PS5. But yeah, they started VR. I never did the VR. To me, there's just not enough. Here is the one game I probably would get VR for, No Man's Sky, because, I mean, only because it's the best game ever made. And then that's where they first introduced Astrobot, which is pretty awesome. Beat Saber, which is what you mainly see when someone's talking about VR games. It's, yeah, dumb game. Looks dumb. Looks dumb. Now we're going to go on to current times. We have the PS5. Now, I don't have one. Hawk does. He likes it. You're going to hear from him talk about that. We'll get somewhere on that. I'll pop that in here at the end of talking about this. It is much faster and it has much better graphics. Unfortunately, and this is where I'm just going to go ahead and start talking about the PS5 Pro. So, they were working on the PS5 Pro at the same time as the PS5. I am very insulted that they put out the regular PS5 because they knew it was underpowered compared to what they could have done. They just refused to put it out in time because they wanted to do a mid-console refresh with the Pro system. That is very disingenuous to your customers. I think that is the scummiest of scummy practices you can do. You knew what we were promised. We were promised the PS5 Pro. That's what it was supposed to be. But instead you just gave us the PS5, which had its issues. Some people had the metal coating around the chip start to melt. If you had it held a certain way, the system gets really hot because the cooling wasn't done properly. Like, there's issues with the cooling in the original one, which they did fix later on with the other refreshes, which are basically just fixes of the console. The one thing they do get is there is a beautiful, beautiful controller. I played with it over at Hawk's house. It's it's a beautiful controller. The first time you feel the what do they call it? Oh, there is a word that they're just not showing here. Haptic feedback. Once you first feel the haptic feedback, it's very interesting. Like, they show it there with the pulling of the string. When you pull a trigger, it might fight against you, and it feels like at first you're going to be afraid. You're going to be afraid that if you pull too hard, you're just going to break this thing. Luckily, that's not what happens. But they say it's backwards compatible. Oh yeah, it's backwards compatible with the PS4. People were hoping this was going to be backwards compatible with all consoles, because that would have been cool to be like, hey, our main competitor in this field, Xbox, has been doing this forever, so we're going to do it too. Nope. And that's going to be because of the PS2. The way its discs are set up, the way they made every console's discs so much different. The lasers have to be different. They'd have to have like 4 different lasers inside this thing to make it work properly. And that's such a shame that they screwed themselves over so hard by doing that. It is such a shame. Another thing that made this kind of controversial is this is when Sony was kind of making it clear we're eventually going to move away from selling physical games. They sold the digital only copy. They sold the one with the disc drive, but they also started selling the disc drives separately so you could switch over, because they realized people were pissed. People were pissed that they were making a move towards going discless, which I completely understand. Yeah, here's the beautiful controller. Again, it has the touchpad right there, which does everything the PS4 did. And yeah, it feels really good to play. Plus, if you see there, the sticks. Oh, yes. Yes, they started to take into consideration that, hey, people like to play shooters, and a divot on your stick feels so much better. And Sony's been pretty good about this for a while. I mean, all the console systems are getting much better with this. Xbox, I think, is the one leading this. But, yeah, they have these controllers for everybody to be able to play. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to play a game. I mean, I'm very pro doing that. Very pro doing that. And then Rift Apart, which is a funny game because they said it's only possible because of the PS5 super fast SDD. And then it worked on PC. Returnal, which is a pretty big hit. We have more God of War, which is why I'm saying this is like their definitive mascot. And this is their other mascot. Like Spider-Man, kinda. It's licensed. But Aloy as well, which, like I said, was controversial. This was Game of the Year when it came out in 2022. Elden Ring. I got Baldur's Gate. Helldivers 2, which is a massive mega hit. Hawk loves this one. I say, if you have a PS5 or PC, check it out. Astrobot, which is a game I love just watching the commercials for. It makes me want to get a PS5. Out of all these games, Astrobot makes me want to get one. But I just can't be... I can't be pulled away like that, because I'd be the kind of person who has to get the Portal because I like to play my stuff handheld, and I would be punching myself in the face if I got a Portal. Spend so much money to get a console and then a handheld to go along with it. PlayStation Plus. So, PlayStation Plus is something that to me it's like Game Pass. At least for the ultimate tier of this, like premium, whatever they want to call their top tier. They are good if you have time. If you have time to play them. Because there's a lot of games on there. And you're spending quite a bit of money. So if I didn't have a job, if all I did was play games, then God, yeah, perfect thing to get. Because then I'd have just infinite time to play. But when you're an adult and you start to work, or you want to like go hang out with friends, have a girlfriend, a wife, whatever, you don't have time for it. And to me, that's where I feel like they make money off those people who pay for it. People who don't have time to play it. That's who they want to buy this, because they're just going to make money off you for nothing. But I mean, it's up to you if you guys like it. Kids, I think, benefit from it. Like, if my kid had a PlayStation, he would have this instead he has an Xbox, so he has Game Pass, which that's who it's kind of aimed for, is a younger generation, sadly. Here's the Portal, which I talked about. It was just a remote play device at first, but now it's actually a PlayStation Plus streaming device, which, I mean, kudos to them. It's finally something that I say is worth getting for people. If you want to stream your games and you have PlayStation Plus Premium, get this. Absolutely get this. And the Pro, which is everything the PS5 was, but 10 times better. Like, it's hard to see on videos on YouTube. It doesn't make it look like there's any difference. But from people who have played it, there is a definitive difference. Like, they like to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on it. It gets rid of that Vaseline glare, which if you've played any of the recent Final Fantasy games, they have like this Vaseline smear, which is just super annoying. They cleaned that all up. They got rid of it. It looks nice. So yeah, kudos to them. They also came out with the 30th anniversary edition, which has that classic gray color to it. It's beautiful. And then PSVR 2, which I don't know why they're even talking about this. They should have hid this one since they dropped support for it so fast. Just instantly. I feel like this thing came out and then they were like, oh, well, we're giving up on it, so let's just make it compatible with PC. And then that was it. That was it. I say this is the game it's actually made for. Horizon Call of the Mountain. That's really all I can talk about with it. Yep. Yeah, so that was our run through with the history of PlayStation. Now, pretty much this is what I had. Like I said, I had a full presentation of my own where I was going to be showing a bunch of gameplay and whatnot, but PlayStation kind of beat me to the punch and put this out, so I was like, hey, well, let's go ahead and go through this and we'll pay some like respect to Sony. So this was the best way to do it. They paid respect to themselves, and I appreciate that. Thank you for helping me out, giving me more content. Okay, so with the history of PlayStation out of the way, let's talk about how PlayStation sits in the current state of gaming. And really, it's going to bring me back to the PlayStation 5 Pro. I personally feel like the fans of PlayStation were burned with the PS5 Pro. One, because of price. It's god-awfully expensive for a gaming console. I understand the technology in it does kind of make it worth that. If you try to compare it to a PC of the same specs, you're going to spend more on the PC. But they were working on this. I mean, let's go back to the regular PS5. On the box, the original box, given they have changed the sense, it promised 8K. And yeah, there was like I think it was 2 games that could hit that. They weren't like their mainstay titles. It wasn't Ghost of Tsushima. It wasn't Horizon West, whatever those games are. There's 2 of them, Forbidden West and Zero Dawn. It was some of the other, like, more low-key titles that just so happened to be able to hit that fidelity. The PS5 Pro is more open to being able to hit that because it does have the specs required to do so. But it's still, I mean, even then, they're not marketing this one as 8K. It can do it better than the PS5 did, but it's still not truly there. I think what PlayStation needs to do is to stop worrying about the high fidelity. In my opinion, look at Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't care about the fidelity. They've said they don't want to be part of the gaming wars. They just want to do their own thing. PlayStation should go back to that. Back when it was just the PS1. I guess they were competing with Nintendo, but Nintendo wasn't really competing with them. So they were just competing with themselves. Even though directly behind me I have Alundra, which is basically PlayStation's Zelda. It was their stab at it, at that type of game. And even then, it's still different, and it wasn't something that Nintendo was competing with. They were PlayStation was able at that time to just do PlayStation. They were able to be themselves. Even with PS2, I mean, once the Xbox dropped, they were kind of competing with them, but they were also still at the same time doing their own thing. I miss the days of Sony just doing their own thing and being PlayStation. If they could go back to that, that would be great. I'm also not the biggest fan of these subscription tiers. I've talked about that many times. I understand that there are people out there who do like these tiers, and it's good for them. I'm happy for them that they like it. Just me personally, it's not really my cup of tea. I cancel my PlayStation Plus because I feel like online gaming should be just free. It should be part of the game. Like, you bought the game, that's enough. That's the only, I didn't have the premium tier. I just had the basic plan where you just get like the 2 extra games to download a month and whatnot. But I want to see them kind of step away from that and focus back on gaming. I know that's not going to happen. That's my just wishful thinking. But it would be cool if they did that. It would be cool if they went back in time and decided to be the old PlayStation again. I mean, they were always known for better graphics. I mean, PlayStation 1 was great for graphics. Look at Final Fantasy 9 for their opening videos. Like, their cutscenes in that game were beautiful. Final Fantasy 8, the same thing. When you're seeing, like, even on the demo, when you are on that ship or seeing the ship shoot at the giant robot dude who you fight on the first island, it's pretty dope. It's beautiful. It was great for the time. They can keep doing that with those games. Like, that's what Square Enix does. So let Square Enix do Square Enix things with your console. I completely get that. But try to go back to being yourselves. Go back to, I guess, simpler times. And I would appreciate them more. Now, there is word, and I'm going to do a separate video on this. There is word that a handheld, like a dedicated handheld along the lines of the PSP and the Vita is coming out at some point. It's probably a few years away. I'd say like 27, 28, something like that. Or 2027, 2028, not 28 years from now. That'd be absurd. It'd be stupid to announce that. This isn't Cyberpunk that we're talking about, where they're just going to announce it like 10 years ahead of time. But we need to focus less on how much power we can get out of this and focus back on the games. Like, I think that's what's hurting them. Like, they were focusing on gimmicks and everything. Like, they were trying to focus on rides. That's why they made Concord, and Concord was just a historical flop. That was one of the worst business decisions ever. You're going to base this off a game that is several years old at this point, and try to copy that. Like, you're trying to copy Overwatch, which Overwatch's time has come and gone. That was with Overwatch 1. Overwatch 2 was just, in my opinion, that's a flop by Blizzard. That was just bad decision after bad decision. But let's go back to focusing on the games. Like, let's make quality games. And they've done so. Like, they have studios that do that. In my opinion, Horizon, they do focus on the game. The people behind Ghost of Tsushima and the upcoming Ghost of Yotai, they focus on the game. And that's what matters. Let's do that. And yeah, even for PS4, one of the best games I think that they put out there was Tearaway, and that is a beautiful game that focuses on just the game. Yeah, it uses the controller. Like, if you have things built into the controller or something like that, use them, but don't make it just the pure focus of it. Like, focus on that gameplay. Focus on great games, and they'll be better. Right now, if I break down all the consoles, like the companies, PC has the most content ever. But out of the consoles themselves, it would be Nintendo, and then Sony, and then Xbox down there, because Xbox is another company that just makes bad decisions. We'll go over that in another video. But yeah, let's go back to those simpler times, and we could possibly see PlayStation get back up and be better than Nintendo. We could see another PS2 type sales going on. Like, Nintendo's is close to eclipsing that with the Nintendo Switch. But let's see if we can get like the PS6 or whatever they want to call it to be the next biggest seller, because you're focusing on games, you're focusing on quality, and that's all that matters. Let's forget the gimmicks. And yeah, keep making the systems like you do. Like, don't focus on a pro version. You can make a slight upgrade. Like, if you just wanted to come through with the PS5 and just be like, well, hey, we're doing the Slim because we're going to fix the cooling system. We're going to make the chipset a little bit better so it's just more sturdy. Maybe improve some of the quality of gaming, because some of the games are coming out that just aren't fully compatible with the PS5. Like, Final Fantasy 5 or 16 is beautiful, and people love it on the PS5. However, I do know it has some issues on the PS5. And we should probably just make sure that the games are quality for what we're putting out. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Like, they're kind of an issue with the way that they're looking at things. The company really needs to like chill and think about what they're doing before they move forward again. But that's just me. Go back to focusing on physical games. You can still do your downloads. I understand that you want to do that. You can keep your tiers if you want to, because people do like that. But don't give up on physical games. That's a big one. Do not give up on physical games. Yeah. That's where I think it stands. Yeah, so tell me, which of these consoles did you like? Like, me, I love the PS. I mean, it's hard for me to choose. For the home consoles, the best one is probably... It's a tie between the 2 and the 4. Because, I mean, 4 isn't as loved by as many people, I think, as the 2 was. But they both have fantastic games. They all have fantastic games. I mean, it's hard to even say the PlayStation 1 isn't the best console. Because that one had Croc, Jersey Devil, stuff like that. I mean, Jersey Devil, I wish that one would come back. If you guys know of Jersey Devil, let me know. That was a fun little game. It was hard. But yeah, Vita, hands down, is going to be my favorite PlayStation product of all time. And I don't know why it doesn't let me go to it. There we go. PlayStation Vita, 2011. I've had this one since launch, and yeah, it's a beautiful console. I got to get it fixed because the sticks are kind of messing with me. But yeah, so let me know how you feel about Sony in general too. And yeah, until next time, you take care. Hey, thanks for watching.
Give us a like if you enjoyed it, and dislike it if you didn't.
Let us know what you think about the channel.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Tell your mom.